Good evening and welcome to the June 4th Narragansett Town Council meeting. Please stand to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Good evening. I do want to recognize Aziz and Adriana from the URI Senate. They're sitting here. They're going to be coming to our monthly town council meetings, or at least once a month, but thank you for being here. On the agenda, we have no approval of the minutes. We don't have a showcase tonight, so we're going to move to open forum. Please, when you come up to the podium, state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Is there anybody wishing to speak? Stanley. The microphone.
Is that better? Yeah, there you go. I would just like to speak about a friend of mine a year or so ago. He brought up the idea of demonization, demons. You have demons in the town, or it appears that students and landlords were a target for being bad people in town. And obviously it was a noise problem. Looks like the chief has noise problem all squared away. And the noise is not only made by students and landlords, noises are made out of families. I mentioned that before. My 5 children made so much noise it caused the neighbors to come over and yell at us as they were fixing their muffler and spinning their tires sometime. So even a family is sometimes a difficult neighbor to have out there, making a lot of noise, especially if there are a lot of children. I'd love to have my kids learn about how to fix a car, so it was hard for me to tell them to stop fixing a car, tell them how to put shocks on, mufflers on, all these kind of things. And I thought I was doing a good thing, but at times it was noisy. So now it seems that we got the noise under control, so there is no reason to carry out a campaign or a situation where we must rid the town of rentals or rid the town of students. We don't need to carry out those kind of programs. And if you notice, there's a green sign. There's a green sign out there. There's a second organization talking about students trespassing. It's not only students. Nobody should trespass. I just had that happen to me a couple of months ago. 3 children from a family, 2 houses away, proceeded to enter my property, okay, without permission. Oh, nobody was living there, therefore we thought it was okay to go in. I said, not really. Obviously it was marijuana and booze all over the place. So we need to, I almost want to organize a resistance movement by the students. We might need a resistance movement to resist these bad ideas out there. I appreciate your help us to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Until recently, I owned a 1997 Mercedes with 220,000 miles on it.
Can you state your name and address, please?
Paul from Narragansett. And the car got just rotted out from the Narragansett salt. So I had to replace the car, and I went to the Mercedes-Benz dealership, and it was like $80,000 for the same car. But it had lots of cool stuff. It had Bluetooth, backup camera. And I said to my wife, I said, I know you love the car, but It's 80 grand. And she said, well, maybe we can find something else. And we did. I found a 2004 for about $5,000. Still had the new car smell. It was beautiful inside. And I said, well, how do you like this car? Is it as good as the other one? She said, no, it's better because we saved $75,000. And that's kind of like the situation we're in with the library right now. This consultant we had, Patience Jackson, told us we needed the $80,000 Mercedes-Benz. And when we talk about it tonight, we're going to hear that it was more expensive to renovate the old library. You know, if we're going to try and make the library into something like that $80,000 car, that's probably true. But did anybody ask the question, you know, can we get away with less? Do we ask the consultant and say, this is what we can afford? Now what kind of library? Because what we're doing is we're letting a consultant decide the fiscal future of our town.
Paul, it's on the agenda, so.
Oh, please don't interrupt me. It's an open forum.
I know, but you can't speak to an item on the agenda.
I think you can. I think you can. There's nothing in the town charter that says you can't.
It is in the charter, but go ahead. Go ahead.
What's that? Is it?
It's in the way we
Okay.
run the meetings, but go
Well,
ahead.
I've made my point. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Wow. Anybody else wishing to speak? Any ladies or gentlemen wishing to speak?
Just is about the Friday night, the PTA had a fundraiser. It's called the Beach Blanket Bidding, and I was able to attend it. I wanted to thank Denise Corson and the volunteers who worked on that. It's a really great event. It's not done every year because it's a huge undertaking, but I did want to thank them for their efforts, and it was a well-attended event.
Yeah, I heard they raised quite a bit of money. Great. Anybody else wishing to speak? Okay, moving on. Public hearing at 8. So I'm going to move to the consent agenda. Anybody from the council wishing to pull any item from the consent agenda? No? All those in favor of the, I'm going to motion, go ahead. Motion to accept.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor of the consent agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0, motion passes.
That's right in the park, right here.
I don't know if I want to go on to new business. I'm looking at the clock. We could do a motion to schedule. All right, we'll have enough time to do that one. Could I schedule the public hearing? I'm afraid to go into the easement now. I'm looking at the clock. What's your preference, council?
Let's start it. If you have to shut it down or go into public hearing, then we'll pick it back up again.
Okay, all right,
That's all.
well, all right, I'll go to,
That's what all these folks are here for.
all right, I'll go to
I'm not here
new
to see me.
business, motion 13. A motion to approve the maintenance and easement agreement with GB Pia Realtor LLC in the town of Narragansett. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
This is an easement and CAM agreement from Gilbane. So, Mark, do you want to walk us through that?
Susan, before Mark speaks, I'd like the chance. I wasn't here last meeting because, as everyone's read in the newspaper millions of times, my niece graduated from college, so I wasn't here, so I apologize. But I would like the opportunity to say 4 points, as other people had made. Thank you. I'll reserve my opinions until later when we discuss as council, but had I been here that evening, I would have really made 4 points. In the last few months, we as a council have learned many things that the community, that the residents have not been privy to. So these are the 4 points I would have made had I been here at the last meeting. The first point being information we've received from Laura Canyon is the new cost for the library is at $10 million. The second point I would want to make is about OLIS, the reimbursement. It is absolutely 100% true that we will receive some type of reimbursement from the state. However, that number is anywhere between 0 and 50. It's probably not going to be 0, it's probably not going to be 50, it's going to be in the middle. But it's a little bit complicated on how that will come to us. Many of you may be familiar with the department store Kohl's, and when they have a sale, they send out a flyer. And on the front of the flyer is a piece of paper you pull back, and you learn how much you're going to actually get back, as far as how much you're going to save, a percentage, usually between 10 to 30%. So you know going ahead of time. So let's just say it's Christmas time, you're going to take your family, and you have a budget of $200 to go Christmas shopping. And you pull back your Kohl's cash and you see that you have a savings of $300. So you now know your family can go and spend $260 and still be at budget. That's just not how the OLIS is working, and I wanted to make sure the town understood. We will not understand how much money we will be reimbursed until after the purchase and after the application. So although we're all hoping for the most, should this go through, we don't know what that is. It's a big question mark. So that's something that the town, I wanted to know. The third point is about how libraries are structured in the state of Rhode Island. There are 3 ways. 1, municipal, meaning reports into the town, reporting to the town manager as the department head. 2nd, private, meaning they operate by themselves without town, they're not town employees. And 3rd, they're a combination, they're a hybrid of both municipal and the private. Narragansett is a private enterprise. They're a private system, meaning they are given a budget from our town council yearly, and they operate that budget as they see fit. They are not town employees. They do not report into the town manager. The library board of trustees oversees them, and they run their budget as they see fit. I think it's important to know, because should we decide as a council to go forward, the town needs to understand that the town council, the town government, the town officials have no say over how that money would be spent. So should we go through tonight and have a 3-2 vote that this is going to be said, that means that tomorrow morning the library board could walk into Jim's office and start talking about moving forward with their vision. The last point I want to make is about something else that came open during this period of time, and this was most recently. And that's a matter about pensions. Although not employees of the town, we have found that there are 6 people currently that have pensions. I want to state up front, I do not want to take pensions away from people, but I want to make the town aware that for whatever reason, there was an oversight by the town that allowed this loophole to occur. I also do know that the library board has approached our town manager with 2 new employees requesting that they also have the benefit of having a pension. So I wanted to make sure the town understood these as we discuss this really important issue tonight, because I think that there are important facts that need to come forward, and I thank the president for the time.
Thank you, Jill. Okay, Mark, we're going to have us look at the easement agreement. Do you think we can at least begin to discuss it?
Madam President, when we last spoke, I think you want to do that 6-page overview of the numbers for the library first, and get into the easement.
Whatever your pleasure is, to summarize where we are with the library and
Yes.
then do the camp fees. Absolutely. Then let's look at that first.
Thank you. Members of the Town Council, I have a 6-page document in front of me, and that will appear on the screen over here, which are numbers that we will use as a baseline as this important discussion starts tonight. So these numbers have all been verified by the Finance Director, Laura Kenyon, and once again, we can use this as a baseline for all the facts that will proceed. So first slide, the estimated cost of the library project. So the building we have at $2.4 million. That does not include the liquor store, which would be $400,000, $0.4 million. If that was included, it'd be at $2.8 million, because that was something that really hasn't been addressed as where the council's going with this yet. The estimated build-out, as several people on the staff worked on it, Jeff Cesarine was one of them, it came out to approximately $4.6 million as the estimated build-out for the 18,500 square foot Belmont building, not including the liquor store. The total cost for the library project would be $7 million, excluding the liquor store. Next slide, the funding of the library project.
The bond that was authorized by the voters was $5.8 million. The additional funds, grants, and donations that hopefully could be raised by the board would be $1.2 million. The total funding for the project would be $7 million. The town cost over 20 years. $5.8 million bond and interest. The $5.8 million with bond and interest would be $8.2 million over 20 years. If the liquor store was purchased, that would be $400,000 for the cost of the liquor store, and it would be $500,000 over 20 years for the cost, which would be the principal and interest. The additional utility cost would be approximately $400,000, $0.4 million, for the new library. The loss of tax revenue would be approximately $600,000, and the camp charges would be approximately $800,000 for a total 20-year cost of $10.5 million over 20 years. The total 20-year cost with reimbursements. The total 20-year cost would be approximately, as stated in the last slide, $10.5 million. In an estimation of state reimbursement, and this is just an estimate based on past reimbursements that other towns have received, would be $3.3 million or 40% of the project in state share of the debt. The net 20-year cost to the taxpayers of Narragansett would be $7.2 million. Last slide. The tax impact of the project over 20 years. The 20-year cost, $7.2 million. The yearly cost in debt would be $360,000. The impact on the tax rate would be 8 cents per thousand. The average home median price in Narragansett is $408,000. At 0.08 cents would be $33 a year, or a 20-year cost of approximately $660 if that tax rate did not change. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Thanks. Mark, are you next with the easements and the camp fees?
I was charged with negotiating a maintenance and easement agreement with counsel for Gilbane, and we've come to an agreement on the document on the terms. At this point, there's no more to achieve. The lines have been drawn in the sand, and we are where we are at this point. So I'll walk you through it quickly. It's important to understand what we're talking about. So we have the shopping center parcel, which everyone, I think, understands to be the shopping center as it is now. That is, Trio, the cinema, Belmont, the liquor store, and the stores in between, like Dunkin' Donuts and the Mexican restaurant. So that's the shopping center. It would be broken out into two parcels. It would be the library parcel, which would be the Belmont building and Pure Liquors, and then the remainder would be called the GP parcel, which GP Pure Retail LLC is the seller. So we have those parcels, and then there's a small other piece. The Narragansett Pure Associates had filed a declaration years and years ago, in which there was an agreement with the then owner of the shopping center, which was later taken over by GP Pure Retail. It was an affiliate. In any event, there's an agreement there that the Narragansett Pure Associates, which is those condos in which there's commercial property below and residential condos above, they have certain rights to use the shopping plaza for easements and for parking, and there's some common area in that, and the common area expense is shared between those commercial condos, the hotel, and Gilbane. So Gilbane has a small part of that, And Gilbane's small part of that is then lumped into the shopping center common operating expenses. So just to be clear, there's a small piece of that that's not separately broken out, but it's an access that's available to the people traveling to and from the library if they choose to go in or out where the hotel is. So it's de minimis, and I don't want to belabor that point. So we have the total common area expenses associated with the shopping plaza that would be shared between the library parcel or the town and Gilbane. And it was, the sharing ratio is calculated based on square footage of buildings in the shopping plaza and what the town's parcel constituted of that. And it was calculated to be that the town's parcel accounted for 37.1% of the overall building square footage, and therefore the town would be obligated to pay 37.1% of the common area expenses. The common area expenses, I think everyone's familiar with. They are enumerated in sections 3A, B, C, and D, but I think more plainly identified in the budget that we had seen in past presentations. There was the 2017 budget, there's now the 2018 budget, and they do a good job identifying what those specific line items are. In previous conversations, the numbers, the budgets for 2017 was approximately $98,000, of which the town would be responsible for 37.1% of that. 2018 budget came in at $87,000, and that was based off of the 2017 actual expenditures, which actually came in at around $85,000, primarily because the snow removal costs were less than budget. So what we were able to do is identify in the agreement what the operating expenses were, and then we went into a whole list of what the operating expenses are not. So you'll see 1 through 35. It's examples of things that are not included in operating expenses and for which the town would not be responsible. And then we further discussed the operating expenses. Gilbane agreed to cap year over year the amount that the controllable operating expenses could be increased, and that cap is 5%. And the controllable operating expenses are what one would typically think of as expenses that you can control. Uncontrollable, non-controllable would be things that are really not in anyone's direct control, such as snow plowing, dependent upon how much snow falls, utilities, dependent upon utility rates, and insurance costs, which could be influenced by claims. So with respect to the controllable operating expenses, there's a cap of 5% year over year. We were able to negotiate in there the right to audit the expenses. So at our expense and upon proper notice, if the town so chooses, it could have an employee or a third party go in and audit the books and records to ensure that they're accurate. If we've been overcharged, then Gilbane would have to reimburse us. If we were overcharged 5% or more, then they would have to reimburse us and pay for the expenses that we had incurred in the audit. That's kind of the CAM charge piece of it. There were a couple of corrections that were made. There's copies here, but there were some references to parcels that were not exactly accurate at the time this was printed. So we've made those corrections, but that's the basis of that. Then, of course, the easement piece. The shopping center is serviced by a number of easements for sewer, for electricity, for all sorts of utilities that run through the properties. And a lot of those service the library, which are not flowing under the property, specifically being purchased for the library. So we needed cross easements so that everyone could have access to the utilities that they needed. So we did that. The exhibits are not finalized because we need the survey to be completed, so we have a legal meets and bounds description for each. But we've come to consensus that, you know, we're going to give each other cross easements so that we all have the utilities we need. Gilbane will retain responsibility for maintaining those and repairing those, all of which are common expenses and will be shared by all. There's cross indemnities, which you would expect, and then not to dwell on this, but it was important that we go in and address the rights that those condo owners had to the overall use of the shopping center. And when the declaration was filed, they had the right to use the shopping center, including parking. Gilbane had the right in that document to go in and terminate whatever rights they believed were necessary. And in this easement agreement, they acknowledge deleting the condo owner's rights to use the library parcel altogether. So
Mark,
we would have exclusive use on that.
Is that 59 plus the 9?
Yes.
So they're giving back the rights to us to have those?
Yeah, we would have the exclusive rights to those parking spots. The condo owners would be, their use would be restricted to shopping center areas outside of that.
Thanks.
And that's it in a nutshell.
Do I have any questions from the council? I want to thank you, Mark. I met with you to review it, and I really appreciate it. It was really helpful. Anybody on the council have any questions on the CAMS or easement agreement? Jill, Matt? Anybody from the public? Richard?
Yeah,
State your name and address, Richard.
my name is Richard Van Gersh, 55 OCO. I did predict that $3.4 million was a fictitious one, and it obviously is probably the $4.6 million a fictitious one, but and it probably is. But I do warn the council that there is a feeling that I have that this is the same as the school sports field. There has to be an end amount for any project. And I do beg you, don't do anything, if you believe this, until you got that $1.2 million in hand and you know what limitations the donors have put on it. Because you can fool around with the sports field, it's outdoors. But when you start making change orders to a building, especially a building that is not a new building, you let yourself in and the town in for an unlimited number of dollars for the project. We were told it was $3.4 million. Now it's $4.6 million. Believe me, by the time that is done, it's going to be $7 and $8 million. And if we use the sports field as an example, it will not be controlled by the town council.
Thank you. It's just about 8 o'clock, so we're probably going to have to come back to this item. And
Let me just comment. I'll take up the last minute. As far as the town of Narragansett, Richard, we're only on the hook for $5.8 million plus interest, and that's it. This council doesn't have to give any more money to that trust. Okay, if they go over, then they're going to have to fundraise. So the town of Narragansett is only on the hook for $5.8 million plus the interest.
thank you. Okay, moving on, it's 8 o'clock. Public hearing, a motion to direct the staff to accept an application to increase the number of liquor licenses for a new Class BV liquor license and schedule a public hearing for consideration on the application from Edward Torrey and Julia Messler, DBA Narragansett Bistro, 904 Boston Neck Road, Narragansett, Rhode Island, Plat NH Lot 1331, I have a date of July 2nd. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is that okay for everybody? July 2nd? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 5-0.
Recuse.
4 with 1 recusal. A public hearing on an application to transfer beverage license for stock only from New Dragon Inc., Chung Hing Lu, Wen Jiang Lu, excuse my Chinese, to New Dragon. President, 80 Point Judith Road, Plat P, Lot 324. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Said you open.
To open. Come on up. Welcome.
Just approve it.
Thank you for being here.
Good evening. I'm Giovanni Laterra-Bellini. I'm counsel to New Dragon Inc., and with me I have Mr. Chung Hing Lau. Mr. Lau is the president and the sole shareholder for New Dragon Inc., which operates at 80 Point Judith. Mr. Lau, and the reason we filed this application after consultation with the city solicitor, we felt it was necessary because Mr. Lau has been at least a 50% owner of the business up until recently, when the other two 50% shareholders had transferred their interest solely to Mr. Lau. So pursuant to the state statute, we filed this application. They've been operating over there for almost 25 years without incident. They've been good proprietors within this town, and we're seeking that this transfer be allowed.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Anybody from the public? A motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Public motion is closed. Do I have anybody that wants to bring the motion to the floor? Make a motion?
I'll move that motion.
For the transfer?
Yeah.
Second.
You made it second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good luck. Congratulations. Okay, we're back. We were on the easement, so we'll go back to that. We had, Mark reviewed it. No questions from the council. We were out to the public again on any questions on the easement or CAMs. Stanley? We're on motion 13. Oh, it's okay. I forgive you, Ann. Number 14. And then it goes from 14 on. No problem. Number 14.
I'm impressed with the details, and I'm so happy that we looked at
Stanley,
it.
you have to speak into the mic and say your name.
I'm so happy that we pursued it in so much detail here. Certainly, I'm not qualified to really pick it apart too much. However, on the CAM charges, when you first started, they said they were going to be 38,000. Then they said they were going to be 78,000. And now, according to this page, I think it's 75. Now it's going to be 87,000. So CAM charges are a very variable thing, and I understand that. I can see the snowplow change. So I guess, we're talking millions of dollars, so there's nothing large enough to really cause a lot of concern other than this is an area that has to be closely looked at. And that 5% was kind of a nice thing, but I'd rather see it around 3. But I guess I could let that go. However, the only issue that stood out to me was a telephone bill for $26,076. $2,676. That really jumped out. I know it's hardly nothing, but it just, a level of scrutiny, I want to look at it very carefully and see if there's anything else I might have missed. If there's any of our maintenance people or something, someone else that would have some ideas on how to cut the snow removal, can we get involved in that? Can we get involved in some of these other areas which would kind of reduce the CAM charge? Because I'm afraid the CAM charges is the variable over a long time that could add up. So all I'm asking is that we eliminate this phone I think a few $100. Actually, I got a phone that cost me $76 for 3 years, and a contract like that, so I'd like to try to cut that out as a step in the direction of being very careful on this.
Yes,
It's a phone bill.
Stanley, the CAM charge is estimated for this year is $87,000.
87.
We pay 37.1%, which equates to $32,400. We currently have a tenant for the next 2 years paying, and we're netting $38,000 a year. So we're making $6,000 a year on this deal.
That's good, but was he for 4 years? Is that how long has he
He's got a
stayed?
two-year-
2
two-year
years.
lease.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Stanley.
Thank you
For the
very much.
record.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak on the CAM or easement agreement? Anybody from the public? Anybody have any questions on that? Okay, seeing no questions, and it seems like the council doesn't have any further questions. Do I have a motion?
A motion, so moved, to approve
Yes.
the CAM and easement agreement.
Second.
Yeah, that's on, that's on.
All those in
So,
favor?
well, can we talk about?
Yeah, well, I said that, you weren't saying anything.
Okay,
That's why- I mean, I read it, I met with them, I'm good, so.
So most of the people have seen, many of you here have come to follow the issues and seen the concerns that I've expressed about that I expressed last week at the budget session. So what I wanted to point out was that this proposal is going to require approximately $420,000 a year from the taxpayers each year for the next 2 decades. So that was based on what we talked about at the budget workshops those 3 nights with Laura Kenyon. During this process, the library board has not been open to any compromise regarding a more modest library proposal. The advocates for the Gilbane deal often point to our prior bond-funded projects with the athletic field and the public safety complex. And they make their point that we should borrow $5.8 million for this Gilbane deal. But they fail to mention that that's triple the size of the amount of borrowing for either of the other 2 projects that preceded it, with the public safety complex and the athletic field. So that large amount of borrowing requires a higher level of scrutiny from this council. There are many aspects of this project that have received little attention. Those aspects are the reasons I've expressed so many doubts about this project. The first of these is the increased staff that the Gilbane project will require. Naturally, if we double the size of our library, then we most likely will need additional staff to operate it. No one's talking about this. However, we have to determine whether additional staff will be entitled to town pensions. The library board seems to believe that any new employees it hires are entitled to those town-funded pensions. However, it has become clear that we have provided such pensions to library employees in error. While I believe that our existing library employees should receive such pensions because they're essentially grandfathered in, new library employees are not entitled to such pensions. I do not think we should sign on to a deal with Gilbane that will likely increase the number of library employees without resolving this pretty important issue regarding the entitlement of these people to pensions. This has been swept under the rug as we've debated the Gilbane deal. It needs to be resolved before the town signs any deal with Gilbane. The library board has not been open to compromise throughout this process. It's acted in its own interest, advocating for a larger library that will actually increase offerings not typically associated with libraries, movie nights, speaker series, and the like, rather than focusing on story hours for children and developing young people's research skills. We can move the non-library type activities, such as movie nights, to the community center if there is inadequate parking. Making another venue comfortable for movie nights and speaker series will certainly cost the taxpayers less than $5.8 million. Our job is to represent all of the taxpayers and to act as a steward of taxpayer money. We have a duty to scrutinize any bond item, despite the percentage of vote it received in an election, because that is our job. The advocates for this costly Gilbane deal have the burden of persuading all of us of the benefits of this project. They're asking their neighbors and friends to shell out dollars that constitute, over time, 10% of the town's annual budget on this project. Our town budget is $59 million each year. I'd like to remind them it is not their money to play with, it is yours. I've not been convinced that these advocates have made the case for doubling the size of the library, adding additional staff, and jumping in bed with Gilbane. And why are we so excited to jump in bed with...
Thank you.
And the behavior of the library board, besides out-of-state landlords, has been the most condescending that I've experienced in my 5 years, and you just illustrated it, so thank you. Why are we so excited to jump in with Gilbane? If Jill was the one saying go with the Gilbane deal, she's the only one not born in the town, knowing the history of the town, knowing the errors that were made in the late 60s and the mid 2000s with Gilbane. I'd say, you know what? If she said let's give it a try, I get it. 3 people, we've all been born in the town. We know what's happened. We know the history. She scrutinized this agreement more than anyone else. Then in all our executive sessions, which we've been going on for a year. As proving this deal is financial malpractice, I'll be sure to tell future generations the names of the council members who vote for it. If they approve it tonight, I'll be sure to tell my kids, my grandkids, and everyone else who were the people who sold out. It's a sad time for Narragansett.
Thank you, Matt. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Well,
Oh, hold on, I just want to see from the council. No, okay. Harry? Hi, Harry.
Hi, folks.
State your name
Good
and
to see
address.
all of you again. Harry Schofield, 9 Atlantic. I just want to commend, Matt for his comments in the editorial and Jill's points as well. I've been, like everyone else, reading the editorials and studying this issue. And I appreciate Jim and the staff's, presentation of the numbers here tonight. I have to agree with Matt. I find this unacceptable. I have no confidence that you'll bring this in, whether it's 10 million or 7 million or 8.5 million, it just hasn't had the scrutiny it deserves. And to say, hey, there's another $400,000 now for the liquor store, and there's a bond for 5.8, and while Patrick says, well, that's all the town's on the hook for, I have a bridge in Brooklyn, I'll sell you if you believe that. But it's just, I have to say, it does seem to me, Matt and Jill, ring a point here that the taxpayers of this town should pay attention to. That this library board, while I'm sure they're fine people who support and are, advocates for having a good facility as a library, have not demonstrated any kind of fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers. And none of them, at least as far as I can see, have any experience at all in managing a major building project like this. So if the approval of this gives these levels of dollars to an autonomous group of people who are independent and have no accountability to the taxpayers to go off on a project like this, I just see a boondoggle that, as Matt and Jill have pointed out, the taxpayers are going to pay for. This town needs roads, it's got a sewer that's at capacity, it needs all sorts of things. So there are many ways to improve a library, and you have such polarization here that it's really impossible to get, I think, to the root of a civil discussion as to what's the best approach between activities that rightly belong in an enhanced community center or an activity center, and what we really need is a library. And there's been such fierce debate on either side that you just can't get a civil discussion that will lead to a productive project. As a director of MPRA, I can say that just recently we conducted our annual survey of our members. And on this issue, our membership is split. It's not split on most things, but it's a bit split on this. But while those people who may be split and support a library don't support it at any cost and under any circumstances, and by giving millions and millions of dollars we have to pay for, the people have no experience in doing something like this. So I think any of you who vote for this tonight as a part of the budget, basically,
Thank you, Harry.
you're violating your fiduciary covenants with the people that put you up there. And there's been enough things go on in this town
Thank you,
where a lot
Harry.
of us are disappointed in what some of you have done, and many of us have supported most of you. So I would encourage you all to listen to Jill and listen to Matt and vote this down. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry.
Nancy LaPosta Frazier, 71 West Bay Drive, a 30-year resident of Narragansett. You're going to have to excuse me because I'm a bit nervous because I'm part of the silent majority that Mr. Mannix is concerned about. I've never met any of the council members. I've never contacted you in any way. I've never spoken at a meeting before or written a letter to the editor of the local paper. But let me be clear about one thing. As a member of the silent majority, I want you to vote in favor of the new library. The idea currently being floated of using other buildings for library functions is frankly just ridiculous. Imagine, families would have to go to the rec center for a movie and then make another stop at the library in order to get a book. Seniors may have to go to the community center for a speaker and then drive to the library to read the daily papers. A library in a town like Narragansett that lacks a true downtown acts as a central meeting point for its citizens. This multiple building approach fractures that idea. By the way, we, the silent majority, understand that we have to repay the bonds. We understand that our taxes will go up, but we're willing to shoulder that expense. So let's have a library that we can be proud of. The silent majority wants it.
Thank you, Nancy. Nicely said. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Thank you. Madge Mitchell McCarthy. I'm a resident of Narragansett on and off since after URI graduating. I was listening to Mr. Mannix, and here's my comment. I had nothing prepared. I came kind of as a silent person. But you're saying you're going to tell your children and your grandchildren about the town council that voted for this library. Well, I'm still telling my children and grandchildren, the town council people that gave our town away years ago in the 60s and 70s.
Right.
We have no town. We have no community center. Get the library there. It's in the middle of the town. It will bring people in. Do you understand that? So I'm going to remember your names too if you vote against it. But I haven't forgotten those people, and we lost our town. Having a community center and a place to go, I use that library, and you said children? My goodness, children are down there reading programs? Get down to that library. Get down there. It's used. It's tiny. It's small. That community center, that senior center, whatever you want to call it, it's really a tough place to go to get people in there. It's not very inviting, and frankly, I don't use it. But go over to the town, South Kingston town. Their senior center is great. You can make this library a great place for meetings, having lectures, students going on. I just think you're making a big error, and so we will remember your name as well.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Lori Kelly, Wildfield Farm. So I had a different beginning to this, but I'm going to start right off with it. The library board has an affirmative obligation to serve the people of Narragansett by creating the best library possible. Individuals on the Maury Lucian's Memorial Library Board have proven their civic dedication and devotion to the library as an educational institution and strive to increase the service to the community on an ongoing basis. That's in case we're confused about who the library board is. I'm flabbergasted about the personal attacks on the library board. My intention is, as I said to a letter to all of you, that I sincerely thank you, the current council, the previous council, the staff sitting here, previous managers and previous solicitors and the staff for all the hard work and blood, sweat, and tears from some of us that have gone on for the last 10 years. I think we're all aware of the workshops and the information and the state oversight that tells us what size building we need. This is not you can just put 80 kids in a classroom and ignore the state guidelines. I mean, we don't do that in the schools, we can't do that in the library. What we have learned at the library, the staff, the friends, this entire discussion and work ongoing has given us more and more support. We did have a positive vote of 67, which is kind of overwhelming, but I have to tell you, more people have come in and thanked us for our service, what we do every day in information technology, and yes, events and programming, and that's been worth this entire fight. So whether it goes down or goes forward, thank you all, and I wish you all luck in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Anybody else wishing to speak on the CAMS easements? Come on up.
Noreen Shawcross, Wolf Road at Bonnet Shores. I'm not going to reiterate the comments about the library being the heart of the community. It is. But I want to make a point that hasn't been made about the town of Narragansett and the importance of this community and its property values and the life of the community compared to other cities and towns in Rhode Island. Look at the library in Coventry. Look at the library in North Kingstown. Go to Warwick. Cranston, it's multiple libraries. Larger town, many more libraries. Compare that to our little facility in Narragansett. It's sad. And that is something that you should always think about. Think about our role in the state of Rhode Island as one of the best towns to live in, one of the most attractive towns for people to come to. Think about what realtors will tell people about the town of Narragansett. So I just wanted to reiterate the importance of this as a really key feature of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak about the library, the CAMS easements?
I'm Jane Stack. I live on Indian Trail. I've been here for 36 years. And I never come to any of these, and I am of the opinion that we shouldn't spend money that we don't have. And as nice as it is to build things and have things, the library has suited us fine all these years. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I feel like we are spending, and it's coming out of the taxpayers. Some people in Narragansett can afford it. In fact, there's quite a few that can afford it. But there's others of us that don't want to have to be paying more money. And so I'm just going to share that.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak?
My name is Mary Nadeau. I live at 10 2nd Street in Narragansett. A couple of things. One, I think we should get over our past history with Gilbane. That happened in the 60s. I used to come here every summer, and I was devastated as everything was torn down. But that's a long time ago. We need to get on with our lives and make this more of a center of town. The other thing is in the 10.2 million, I'm a finance person, sorry. Our original borrowing was just for not including the liquor store, and we're not including in that 10.2 million any money that we get from the use of that building also, so we are a little on the high side. And I do think our costs could go down because it's really $33 a year currently with a current tax base where people are building mega mansions. I live near Point Judith. I go up Ocean Road all the time, and their tax base has to be going up hugely in this town. And $33 a year, most people can afford, and over the life of the library, $660, I'm sure it will be less based on, there's a house on Pilgrim Avenue that I'm very familiar with. It's about 7,000 square feet that was built. I mean, it's just craziness. So I just would hope that people would vote for the library. I think there's a couple of high numbers that we could correct, but overall, we should get on and make it more of a center of the town with the library.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a lot to lose.
You need to say your name.
Paul from 7 Windward Circle, Narragansett. We have a lot to lose by approving the library, and that's the sort of fiscal tradition we've had of keeping taxes low. $30 or whatever it is, that's a tax increase. And it's $30 here and $30 there. I mean, Patrick, if you vote for this tonight, it's going to mark the end of an era of kind of responsibility. And we can't bring back the pier. It's not coming back. It's just not. And if those cost overruns, if you have a library that's half built, the town's going to be faced with somebody that doesn't have any responsibility to the town coming back asking for more money. And if it's half built and we have to put more money in, the next council is going to have a tough decision. You're going to let it sit there for years? I mean, it's a huge risk, and it's the pier's not coming back. It's just not, and we can't bring it back with this one building.
Thank you. Carol?
Carol Stewart, Foster Lane. I just want to mention, speaking of keeping tax rates down, our taxes went up considerably this year. It's the same house that we moved into 39 years ago. A huge leap. My neighbors, huge leaps. There seemed to be no rhyme or reason, so we tried to find out from the representative from the Reval place. I thought it was pretty clear to me why they went up, and he said, it's the neighborhood you live in. House just sold for $547,000 on the other street. They all are selling for over $500,000. So my taxes are going up for what? To pay for the extra policemen that have to come into our neighborhoods consistently and monitor all the roads and everything. My taxes are going up. They are up. I can think of a better use for my tax money than what it's used for now, which is to permit people to come in and snap up houses so that we can't meet our goal of affordable housing. I know I'm getting off track, but you're talking about taxes. And I'm saying I like the idea of something in the middle of town and what a town library offers. And I've told some of you people some of the stories that I've watched in that library, and my heart breaks sometimes when I see who can't be accommodated. So I'm not getting into the political aspect. I'm not getting into who's qualified. I would like to have seen the town negotiate a better deal, that's for sure, but who wouldn't like that? I'm just saying, my taxes are going up. I'll pay the $33 if I have to. I don't want it to be an impact on people who can't afford it. So I don't know what kind of conclusion you can come to. You have a most egregious task in front of you for what you have to do tonight. I'm just letting you know how I feel. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Hi.
Jennifer D. Simone, 14 Green Acres Drive, Narragansett.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm nervous. I was not planning on speaking tonight.
We're happy you're here.
So I'm a mom of two. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son. We love the library events, not just Narragansett. I mean, we go to Cross Mills in Charlestown, we go to Kingston and South Kingstown, but, you know, and something I love about Rhode Island is when you get the card, for your library card, you can return the books anywhere. You can take them out anywhere. It doesn't have to be in your town. So I don't think it matters that it's just in Narragansett. And I mean, we have a lot of things that that are just for us. Like we have the Philharmonic thing, the Calamari Fest. There's a lot of things that make us Narragansett. I don't think this is going to make us any more of a community. Like we have a lot of events that we do. And if we don't have the money, I mean, there's a lot of places in South County that I think we have that we can use without spending money that we don't have. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? Steve. Oh.
Mickey Dickinson, Bonnet Shores, Narragansett.
Hi, Mickey.
How you doing? I guess I can only speak to only allowing 17 children at a time into the children's department. That's all we can do legally because it's so small. We don't have a bathroom for children by themselves to go to. They have to use the general one. One of my neighbors is handicapped. There is, now I know we're going to go ahead and do something to the front door. But for years, the front door, she was not able to get into the library. Yes, we had a ramp, but we didn't have that thing, you know, that you hit to get in. That was missing for many, many years. It's time to move forward. Libraries are about ideas and people. They're not about books anymore. We're into the digital age. We have a community center here that is outdated unto itself, so to say that we could move things down there, I think we can do better than that. Change is difficult for everybody, but the time has come. It is overdue. I had a program at the library 2 years ago. 110 people came. There was not enough room in the largest room you could have in the library. So they had to open it up with a television screen into the main library, which meant that all of those people had to listen to the program and do whatever else they came to the library to do. It's too small. We have no storage. We have difficulty getting books, any more books, because we don't have any storage to do anything. We're having a book sale, and we're struggling to place the books that we want to sell anywhere for storage. We need room. There are rules and regulations. People have been very responsible in their duties on the library board. So to say that they're not is not a true statement. So I urge you all to move forward and move the town forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mickey.
Stephen Ferrandi, 44 Sylvan Road, Narragansett. I'm just learning something a little bit new on this issue on the library, and that I didn't know tonight until I heard it. I didn't realize that the total $5.8 million bond is going to be in the hands of, the library board, and that's by law, I guess. So what scares me about the whole project is just the idea that, there might not be enough supervision from the council to try to, if they run into any kind of a snag.
So it's the second or third time, I just want to help you with that. There is a library committee that has the town manager, has a council person. There's a group of people that will be working together on the project. So building committee. So it's going to have the leader sitting over there. I think Councilman Murray's on it. There's a group of people that are qualified to be on it, just so you know. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I realize that too.
And that's the library committee, the building committee, but the library board does not need to listen to them. They should advise by them, right? An advisory component, but they're not.
I'm not. Can I finish what I was trying to say?
Go ahead, Steve.
I understand.
I just wanted to make sure you knew that existed.
I understand the oversight. All I'm saying is it's a lot of money to not ever have any kind of a possible council influence on it or some kind of an agreement. And, I think no one really has an issue with a particular library. It's just, you know, this issue has really polarized the town, and it's because it started out at $5.8 million. Now, we've added the liquor store in with it, okay? Now, Patrick, that's fine. You say it's a good deal. We could sell it tomorrow. We're not going to sell that piece tomorrow.
I wouldn't.
More than likely, it's probably going to be part of the library. Maybe it should be. But, you know, here's another twist in this so-called issue. So we have to take...
It was the only way we carve out a lot,
No,
1.1 acres.
I understand, but that shows the complication of everything. Now, the camp fees, you had negotiated on, okay, let's sign a purchase and sales agreement in March, and really the only thing we could negotiate out were the camp fees. Now, the camp fees haven't changed much. It was approximated $39,000, now it's $37,000. So that was never negotiated. You know, you saved $2,000. That's fine. Right. I mean, I just want to say it's all this complication, and it's really a shame what it's done to polarize the town. And I just have some apprehensions on the management of it and the, you know, making sure they get the reimbursement. It's all, you know, we don't have the money right now to do it. Nobody can really say anything about a library. This deal is just too complicated for the average taxpayer to figure out, and I think that's what's wrong with it. Thank you.
I just want to make a quick statement about. We're getting money from the Office of Library Information Services, OLIS, and OLIS is not going to let the Library Trust go off half-cocked and burn through $5.8 million. Okay? They're not going to do it. They have a vested interest in oversight. We have a building committee. And worst comes to worst, we have a town council that can dismiss the library board if it comes to it, but I don't think it's going to happen. I certainly have a tenuous relationship with the library board. I think I even got one restraining order because I'm trying to dig out information and research this whole project. So they're not too happy with me, believe me. And, so as far as management of the money, I don't see that as an issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. I think if you listen to anyone who spoke tonight, you should listen to that young woman who stood up. She's here with her husband. She has 2 young children. These are the people who are going to have to pay for this library. Not me. I'll be dead in 20 years. Many of the people who stood up, we're not going to be around in 20 years. We are putting a burden on these young people that live in town or are trying to move into town. And we don't have any right to do that. I don't feel we do.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak?
You know, Susan, one thing that might be helpful, we have the library committee here. I think it'd be great maybe if you can come forward, as many as possible. The one thing that I'd love to know is your thought process. I mean, when the bond was, it was either for renovation of the current or to purchase another. If you could just, I've been in committees before when we've had discussions about which road should we go down. So I think it would be helpful for us to understand what your thought process was with that. And Lori, I don't know if you want to, or any of the other members that are here, to just be able to come and address that point.
So I'm looking to the solicitor because there's a motion on the library. Can you help me out?
We do seem to be going astray.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're on the motion and the conversation that's in front of us.
I would like to hear the answer as well, but I think I think that time for that discussion has expired.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Margaret Franks on Clark Road. My husband and I are fairly new. We've been here about 4 years. My history before coming here is I worked for a large public library, well, municipal, in Danbury, Connecticut. I was executive assistant there. I've been very involved in capital projects and also at looking at renovating an extremely, extremely large library. I have to tell you, from my experience working over 10 years in a large library, this library board has done an outstanding job. listening to all that they have done, all the due diligence they've done, all the back studies they've done, I have to tell you, they are far superior to many, many libraries I've seen over the years. Libraries are no longer just books. They're no longer online books. They are programs, they are community centers. If you go to any library site, you will see that libraries are community centers. Learning more about Narragansett, it's a wonderful town, and I have to tell you, as a former library employee, a library is an integral part of what people are looking for when they come to town. Hearing that only 17 children can be in the children's room is it's just sad. But also, the thing is, I have to say, this library is used so much. I was in a library where we had over 100 computers within the library for people to use. We had 3 floors with audiovisual books, everything, a technology center. This library, per capita, per person, is probably used more than the library I worked in back in Connecticut. So there's questions about this library board overseeing this money, all of that. They have done an outstanding job, and I foresee that they would continue to do an outstanding job, overseen by the state, overseen by the money you would get from the state. So this, and then you have to keep in mind, if it doesn't happen now, you're not getting money from the state. So anything you do to upgrade the library is all on the town. But I see you shaking your head. I don't know all the intricacies, but I know that the money from what I've heard, the money from the state is only available now. So I just have to say, once again, these people have done an outstanding job. This library is used more than I have seen any other library, than I've gone to a few in the area. Since we're new here, we were checking things out. This library is used so much. It's just amazing and heartening to see, and it is definitely something you will be losing so much here in Narragansett, bringing new families in, if you don't keep this library. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Hi, my name is Chris Dolos from Lambert Street. I come from a perspective of a teacher and a lifelong resident of the town. I also have 3 kids with my wife, who's also a resident. And one thing I've noticed since growing up in this town, I've realized that there were about 15 kids in my neighborhood playing when I was a kid. Now there's only 3, and they're my own kids. And I've noticed that enrollment has gone down in schools a lot. And I know that as a teacher in the district, that it's important for job security, and it's important to get new kids into this town so that we don't, pass ourselves by with youth or, with age, and we get too old. I don't want to get too old. So I think youth is necessary to regrow our community, and there's no better way than a new library. And as a teacher, we're bringing in about 50 new students from out of district. And if you can imagine how much tax dollars that is for our community, by doing the programs we're doing currently at the high school with the CTE programs, we're bringing in tax dollars for this community by working hard in our schools, especially the high school, to bring in tax dollars. So $33 is nothing compared to what the money we're bringing in through the schools to offset that little tiny cost. And if we can promote families to come and move to this town again, like it used to be back in the late 80s and 90s when I was a kid, that would be a huge growth for this town. And if a new family is coming into this town and they're going to look for something, and looking for a library, looking for a good school, looking for a library, looking for sports, looking for a nice place to go during the summer, we have all that. The only thing we don't have is we don't have a library. So I agree with all the proponents of the library up here today, but the one thing I haven't heard of is the things I'm bringing to the table right now, which is, schools, strong enrollment in schools, and rebuilding our community from the bottom up, elementary schools up. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
Good evening, guys. Steve DeSimone, 14 Green Acres.
My wife was up here earlier. You know, I got 2 small children. We're trying to, buy in this town. We're trying to stay in this town. A library is not going to keep me in this town. Being able to afford to live here, to find jobs here, that'll keep me in town. A library is not going to do that. Now, I'd love to have my kids at our library. Doesn't happen often because of the small size of the room, but that building is enormous. We're not going to fill that building. And the feel of a nice, full library full of people, that's not going to give you that feel. That's going to feel empty. That's going to feel like Danbury, Connecticut. Nice, affluent town, lots to do, nobody's at the library. So, I don't know what you're going to do, but sounds like more jobs, but more expensive jobs that cost a lot over the long term, which brings up taxes, which makes an already hard town to move to harder. So that's my piece. Good luck, guys.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak about the library? Anybody else on the council?
This will be quick because I've already made all my points throughout, even when I was campaigning. So I've supported this from the very beginning. I've read every document that's come across my desk. I've done the math. I've seen the, I've even extrapolated out 30, 40, 50% increases. I've relied on, so I've always been a yes. I've always been a yes. Everyone that supported me, I've always been a yes. So it's not a surprise that I'm going to vote yes. So I agree with the woman from Danbury. I think the library board has done a great job. I think the council has done a great job. Everybody that's either in favor or not in favor has done a great job doing their homework. Some have discussed financial reasons, some have discussed community-based reasons, and they're all very valid points. I grew up here, left in the late 80s, watched the IGA go out of business, I watched Belmont go out of business, I watched that center of town evaporate. And some people would argue that it's not going to come back. I do full-heartedly believe that a vibrant town center starts with a community-based, a full-time community-based operation like a library. Some argue you could put a steakhouse, you could put all kinds of resort activities, but the town has 1/3 of their properties as full-time people. That's it. This is one of the biggest and best things this town, in my opinion, can do for the people that live here full-time. Things cost money. The roads cost money. I think we approved an $11 million bond so many years ago, and 17 million? 11 years? Well, however long it was a lot of money a few years ago, and we have done a good job managing that bond money, rolling it out. I would suggest a little slowly. I've lost a few hubcaps here and there, but we've rolled that out in a diligent manner. The town manages, this town manager and this town staff manage the expenditures and the appropriations in a way that far exceeds some of the businesses that I work with on a daily basis. So I have just full confidence in the plan and the people that are involved. And last but not least, we all probably know who the swing vote was in this whole discussion. Probably one of the most conservative people I've ever met. So if he's on board, which I don't know, maybe he is, if he's on board with this, I'm on board with this. So a resounding yes when it comes to it.
Patrick, go ahead.
Yeah, DeLuca, Mike, can you go back to the last page of that PowerPoint presentation? All right, the cost. Okay, it's 8 cents. So if you live in a $300,000 house, it's $24 a year. $200,000 house, it's $16 a year. $1 million house, it's $80 a year. And this isn't a soft soap estimate. This is, I mean, OLIS gives you between 40 and 50%. We took the 40%. The average OLIS is right around 45. of all their last projects. We haven't, from what I understand, we haven't received any type of money like that since the 60s. So we're way overdue for this project, to receive a relationship with OLIS. And they're going to oversight this, like I mentioned before. The build-out cost. The build-out cost was, I believe, initially in the high twos, 2.8 million, something like that. Jeff Cesarine, a town engineer, updated the numbers to 2018. I took the liberty to add 18% as a buffer. And then there was another 300 thrown in there because of some of the updating of the equipment that we need to utilize in this location. So that 4.6 number, again, the worst case scenario, 8 cents. I am very confident that we can be a lot less than that. I think by tweaking a few things, other buildings, such as the Ava Street facility, leasing out the current location, we can get that down to 6 cents. So that $300,000 house turns into $18 a year. So this, for me, being the conservative guy, I can live with this, okay? In fact, after all we've been through, I'm ready to pay $100 a year. So, but, but as far as, the relationship with Gilbane, I was here. I actually lived here during that whole process. And if anybody should have an axe to grind, it's me, okay? But if it was Gilbane or some other corporation, it was a previous town council that gave away the store, okay, in my eyes. But I was 7 or 8, something like that. So I have an opportunity to bring a piece of the pier back and carve out 1.1 acre for $128 a square foot. That's the cost for the purchase. And 68 parking spaces, deeded access, and the whole building, not half a building or 3/4 of a building. And if we wait, because the economy, the country's moving forward, they're talking 5% GDP, the cost to bond this out in the next couple of years is going to be, instead of 3.5%, it's going to be like 5%. So as a conservative, if we don't act now, it's going to cost us a lot more money. And as far as the current location, Matt's right. Community centers, libraries are turning into community centers. There are different functions. There are interactive internet and just a different type of, this ain't your old man's library. So I'm comfortable with this, all right? And believe me, if elected, I'm going to be around, and I hope by then the Library Trust will be talking to me again. But I can support this. Thank you.
Thank you. So first I want to thank Mark and Jim and the entire council. This has been a long, and Jeff, a long road. I've been a yes from the very beginning. 6 years ago, when Matt was the president, the project came before us, the voters voted for it, and I've been a yes from the onset. I know it's a spirited debate, and I hope it doesn't polarize the community. We can agree and disagree, but I hope after tonight, the library will bring the community together. I think the price is right. I agree with Patrick and Mike. I grew up here. I've lived here over 50 years, and I was around too when Gilbane was down there and we didn't have a piece of the town. And I look at this transaction as an opportunity for the town to finally get the center back and to be vibrant and to grow. And so I'm more thrilled than ever to look at this piece of property and as a real estate deal to build a library. And I believe the library board, the trustees, and all of the people that have been involved have been truly professional and have done an excellent job in the existing library, and I feel like they will do the same kind of work with integrity and dedication and hard work in years to come. And again, we've heard so many wonderful things tonight. We either make the investment now or we wait another 20 years and it's going to cost triple the money. So I say it's a deal in front of us. I think we've worked hard with Gil Bain and Mark. We worked with the whole group to negotiate the very best deal. I think $30 to $33 for a year is not a high increase. I actually don't see that would blow a hole in the budget. And I am just a yes. I've been yes since day one, and I can't wait to see the center of this community having a library. So, with that, anybody else? All those in favor of the...
Actually, I think Matt wants to speak as well, but just a couple of things. I think the one thing that all 5 of us agree upon, the current library is not adequate for the town. Am I right? So we do agree on that. Right. But the reason I wanted that library board to address how they came, what they spoke about in their meetings, is to talk about the fact of something that Matt brought up in his letter to the editor, and a couple of people brought up this evening, is existing site. You know, we could probably, not even probably, we could put in an incredible library in the existing site with maybe a couple $1 million, repurpose activities that are not traditional library information activities, such as the movies and other community events, to our community center, which we as a council just voted to put $100,000 into. So it makes sense to be able to drive that vehicle there. So we all do agree we need a new library. What we don't agree with was really, you know, how much money do we want to invest of taxpayer dollars? There are a few people that spoke tonight about the amount of ability to live in town, and that's a big problem we have. We're not getting new families to come to town, and I think that's just an extra good point, is when we take a look at the current library, we could repurpose that, make it into an adequate, we definitely need to have a better library for the young kids in town, the children in town, and we could do that while repurposing activities that are not traditional activities to the community center. So I guess, I mean, Mike mentioned it, it's up to Pat. Tonight is Pat's night, and I've mentioned this to Patrick many times before. I like him very much personally, and I really feel the weight on his shoulders tonight. I wouldn't want to be you. I really wouldn't want.
No,
because
there's no weight.
I would think in this your lifetime, you're probably going to make 5 big decisions that are going to be really impactful. The day that Diane, and we still don't know why, but she agreed to marry you, that's probably a big decision in your life. But tonight is probably another one of those big decisions for you. So Pat, the couple of things I just want to remind you of. When you did run, you ran to represent Joe's Six-Pack. That was one of your big things. You continue to speak now about the Field of Dreams at the schools with the rec fields that we had, with the uncontrolled ability for spending. One of the things I really admire about you is that it's little dollars like 33 that you hone in on. When we talk about vets exemptions, and elderly exemptions. You wanted to make sure, because those $33 might not matter to 5 of us, but they matter to a bunch of people at home right now who are watching, wondering if they're going to be spending millions of dollars on this library that they could use in a different way. So I applaud you for that, but I guess I'm wondering, this is not the Patrick Murray that we've known on this council. Your conservative just being is not there. So I guess I just have to wonder, what else is it that's going on?
Well, I can answer that. Like I said earlier.
If you choose to.
Yeah, I can address it. I think we can get that down to 6 cents. And that 6 cents turns it down to $270,000 a year. And that 7.2 million goes down to $5.4 million a year. We're just tweaking a couple of our properties. That 7.2 can get down to 5.4 over 20 years.
I understand, Pat, but that's a lot of could, what ifs, right? And we really don't know. We really don't know. And the biggest thing to conclude and allow then Matt to say, this is not the deal the town voted on. This is a much different deal. We voted on a $5.8 million. I voted for it. 67% of us voted for that deal, but it's morphed. It's now different. Now there's a liquor store. Now there are CAM fees. Now it's up to $10 million. It's a different deal. So maybe we need to, and I know that the library folks are not going to want to hear it, but maybe we need to put out to referendum. Maybe we need to have the town vote again, because this is a lot of money, and it's other people's money we're spending. And it's people who count on those $33 every single year that we need to ask, do you want to spend $10 million on a library?
All right, let's ask them.
All right, we're ready to do a vote.
Yeah, just Patrick said, I think that we're going to get this down, the 5.8 and
5.4.
The
6
5.
cents.
The 5.8 plus the 400,000 for the library, that we talked about that at length in budget. That's the debt service. It's part of the budget.
That's right.
There's no way around that. The oldest reimbursement that comes back, I don't think there's anyone here who thinks that's going to be returned as like dividend checks that was with the Alaska, what was done in Alaska years ago with oil money. We're not going to return those checks back to the taxpayer. The taxpayer is not going to see that 30, 40, even 50% coming back. So when we talk about that cost, that's going to essentially be gone. But I went with the conservative number that we went through in budget, 6.2 million in debt service. And I just think, you know, you're saying, I think it's a lot of conjecture it's based on, and we've had council members a little bit having blinders on about whatever Gilbane comes back with, we're not going to scrutinize the deal anymore, and that's been frustrating for me over the last year on this project. So, again, I think it's just a sad time if this goes through.
Can I address that, Matt? Actually, Gilbane did relinquish. If you go back to the map, sorry, can you go back to the map?
And just for clarification, these are the finance director's numbers, correct? Yes.
There's an
Although
area.
Patrick-
My numbers are from, they're not, people, they're not my numbers. The thing that I put in the paper was an average. I can do simple division. It was 21 years of debt service, and I divided it by 21. So everyone has different numbers on this. Some people put in what the tax revenue that's going to be lost is. Some people put in the camp fees. None of that.
Just up here.
None of that. But my point is people have different numbers. They conjecture certain things. But the 6.2 million in debt service is what is in the budget. Okay, that's what we talked about at budget. That's what we're going to be borrowing for 20 years. So that's why I used that. I didn't go and do my own formula, okay?
No,
so
I agree.
Everyone else is doing their own formulas and conjecture.
I agree with your numbers, but you're not plugging in the oldest monies of 3.3. At minimum, we're going to get 3.3 from them.
And you think those are going to go back to the taxpayer?
Yes.
That's
what it's slated for.
You think that is going to be returned? When those checks come, they're going to be divided by the town taxpayers and given back rebate checks.
Where do you think it's going to go?
I think it's going to go to back to the general fund is where I think it's going to go.
And it's going to pay off other projects. It's going to bring down the rate. Okay?
No,
yes,
it's
it
not.
will.
No,
Believe
it's
me,
not.
if I'm around, it will. I'm not going to listen.
Well, Patrick, you say that, but you don't screw it. You talk about a conservative line, but in budget, I don't see you. We talk about cross-training employees. We talk about changes. You don't bring those ideas forward, right? You talk a big game. You vote against the fire contract on which you sit on, right? But it's not scrutinizing. So you can say it's fiscally conservative all you want. It's not. Okay, this isn't, and I've witnessed now the gap between the rhetoric and your actions.
Well, Matt, that's for the people to decide, not for you to decide. So.
All right. Let's call it to a vote. We have a motion on the floor. We have a second on the agreement on the CAMs and the easement. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Definitely.
Resounding aye.
Absolutely. All those opposed?
No.
3-2, motion passes. We're going to take a 5-minute break. I'd like to call the meeting back to order. I don't know where Councilman Murray is, or Councilwoman, is Ms. Lawler. I'm going to call the meeting back to order, please. Oh, he's in your office. Yeah. Yes, please. We're on motion 15, a motion to reconsider the vote taken on May 21st, 2018. Item 13, a motion to introduce, read, pass, and accept as a first reading of the appropriation ordinance of 2018-19 fiscal year that failed to pass. Do I have a motion?
I'll move that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have any discussion on the budget? We were pretty thorough in the workshops in the last meeting. Any questions about the existing budget?
So
Oh,
nothing,
no, sorry, just to
Yeah.
reconsider, my apologies.
so nothing changed in the budget, right, Susan? Nothing changed?
So this vote is just to vote to reconsider it.
Which would give us options to change it.
Yeah. All those in favor of reconsidering the budget?
Aye.
Aye. Was that aye, Jill? 5-0, motion passes. 16, a motion to introduce, read, pass, and accept as a first reading of the appropriation ordinance of the 2018-19 fiscal year. Do I have a motion?
So move.
A second?
Second.
Now anybody? This is the new budget as of July 1st.
Right, so it's the same budget.
Same
So
budget.
if we wanted to change
Change
anything in it, I guess we discussed that now.
This would be the time if you want to make any changes.
Right, so having voted against the budget for the reasons I articulated, 21 years of debt service at $420,000 a year, I obviously would have that same position. I was going to come in, didn't know what the library vote was going to be, so I was going to come in and put forward something with debt service of less than that, that Laura could put together for us, $1 million over 10 years, but for a more modest proposal on the library. But I don't know if I need to bother making a motion since the library's gone through. And Patrick, so you voted against the budget, but now you're for the same exact budget?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't vote
That's interesting.
against the budget. Well, I didn't vote against the budget because of the library.
So
And
what
I
do you
wanna
want to fix
keep-
in the budget?
Well, I don't want to give you my reason for voting against the budget because it's nobody's business.
That's
Okay,
what
so-
you're elected to tell us the reason. You're
No,
supposed.
I
It's the
don't
most
know.
important vote we take
Well,
all
I'm ready
year.
to support it now, Matt, okay?
Right.
We had a shutdown for 2 weeks. I think everybody lived, so let's vote for the budget.
So you flip-flopped on the budget. Okay.
So
I don't
six-
flip-flop.
I
I'm
got it.
consistent.
You flip-flopped. You voted no, didn't give a reason, now you're voting yes. I wonder what happened in 2 weeks to change your mind?
16, a motion to read, introduce, read, and pass. Anybody else want to comment? Jill?
I'm comfortable.
All right.
It's okay with Matt.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
3-2, budget passes. Number 17, a motion to adopt a resolution approving the capital improvement plan. Do I have a motion?
So move.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? This would be a time where I would want to bring up Clark Road again as a capital improvement project. It was $105,000. It got cut from the capital. And we debated the merits of the value of that piece of property and the uses of it. And certainly it needs some renovation, so I would be in full support of trying to get that back in the capital. And
What do we got, 25 in there? Right?
No, Matt had,
You guys, this is the job of the work session. I mean, this is,
Matt
the
had-
competence level is dropping as we speak. I mean,
Matt
this
had
is
meant-
what the work sessions are for. If you want to amend this, you do it at the public hearing, Susan. At this point, just put on an item for Clark Road and vote it up or down and take out of the
I'm
contingency.
just mentioning what I
mean,
support in the
I've
capital.
been doing this a long time.
I know.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say it
I
again.
know.
I support the capital project that was on Clark Road. And last budget, we talked about it, and there wasn't an appetite for it. But again, I want to be on the record for saying that that was a project that I would wholeheartedly support. I didn't have support of my colleagues. Clear, fine. But I thought it was a good move for this community to renovate
In the
Clark
spirit
Road.
of compromise, I would work with you on that from contingency. I just don't think I would amend the budget again.
Yeah,
you know,
no, that's fine, and
all.
maybe there's an opportunity for that, because I just think it's a great piece of property, and I would like to see something down there happen. So that's all I have to say about the Capitol on that. Anybody else want to comment? Anybody from the public? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
No.
3-2, motion passes. Number 18, a motion to adopt an ordinance of the Town of Narragansett providing that Chapter 1037, Chapter 1040, the Code of Ordinances in the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, be amended by the enactment of amendments to the budget for the Town of Narragansett fiscal year beginning the first day of July, AD 2017, and ending the 30th day of June, AD 2018.
So move.
Second.
And Laura, this is the transfers that we've been talking about. Any questions on this? Anybody from the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, motion passes. 19, a motion to adopt a resolution amending the official list of parking restrictions and regulations in the Town of Narragansett in accordance with the Narragansett Code of Ordinances, Boston Neck Road, Sprague Bridge area. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
It's a little tangential to that, but the Star Drive was near that, and I just want to make sure that we get the signs up at Star Drive. I know it's a little tangential, but that the Star signs get up there with the Star Drive restrictions, which are very close to this. I know it's not the same thing, but just want to put that out there for Jim, that we do that. And strong enforcement,
The
too.
signage is a priority on both sides, and enforcement will be strict.
But this motion that we're discussing is the one for near the bridge. on
That's correct.
Boston Neck.
This motion is for the second reading on the Sprague
Okay,
Bridge.
signage is important.
I've been forgetting to mention the Star, and I just felt like I want to get it on
I got
there.
it, I got it. All those in favor? Oh, sorry. 19, sorry, David. Lot going on, my apologies.
David Smith. I live on 24 Castle Road in Narragansett, which is in this neighborhood. But I also here as a chair of the Narragansett Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. And one of the things that we've been looking at is ways to improve bicycle safety on the principal arteries in Narragansett. This particular section has substantial shoulders on both sides of the road, and it also has sidewalks. So it creates an excellent bicycle lane on both sides of the street. So although when bicyclists heading south get onto the portion of Boston Neck Road in front of the beaches, they'll be treated to a little more congestion. This at least has a relatively safe bicycle lanes. We will also be recommending that these lanes be marked to be buffered lanes, that is to have bicycle symbols on the lanes to indicate there would be no parking and to indicate that it shouldn't be used for passing on the right, which, you know, and I don't see any reason to have 2-hour parking on that section of the street. The only reason you would park there is either to launch a kayak at Sprague Bridge or to go to the beach, and you're going to be going to both places for more than 2 hours. So I would urge that you not pass this, that we preserve this section of Boston Neck Road as a good avenue for bicycling, and that you, if you do pass it, or if you required to by the state or whatever, that you revisit this frequently. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so any discussion on that? I mean, we did talk about wanting to clean up that area, but, you know, he brings up an excellent point. If you're going to be on a boat or you might be more than 2 hours over there.
Mr. Smith brings up a very valid point. That is a state road, and we've been working on this for 18 months. It would have been our choice to have no parking on that road, but that was not an option. The best we could do is put limited parking, and that's right from the state. So what we have in front of you is the best case option for everything, but Mr. Smith is correct. I mean, there will be increased parking on the road, more congestion, but this was the only alternative we had, was to allow parking for that 2-hour period and limit it for 2 hours.
We're actually moving toward his position because right now it was chaos last summer. I mean,
right, that's why
people
we're
were parking.
yeah.
People were parking there.
Right, but
so we're moving toward your position. We'll have to keep lobbying. We'll keep lobbying to have no parking on it eventually.
Well, I think maybe I misunderstood it, but there's going to be parking in the breakdown lanes now so that would be a detriment to
So
your.
they're going to park up like this.
But we cannot prohibit parking from those breakdown lanes per the state. The most we could do is limit it to 2 hours.
Boston.
Rosemary. We might have to think about that a little bit.
Rosemary Smith, 24 Castle Road. Mr. Town Manager, I understand the pressures that are in that area to remove parking from some areas and allow it in others. But I think I really have to say that one part of the state is saying one thing and another part of the state is saying another thing. And so, this is the north-south route through the town of Narragansett. It is considered by many bicyclists that we've interviewed when we've been on the committee, I'm a guest at the committee, the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, that area is a very safe route because there is no parking in that area. And the main concern from people who are riding bicycles in that area is that they will be doored, that someone will open a door as they are traveling at 10 or 15 miles an hour on their bicycles down that street. I see the potential for danger there. It's a safety hazard to allow parking in this area. The Department of Administration is in the process of developing a bicycle mobility plan. And part of that mobility plan is that Boston Neck Road, Ocean Road, Galilee Road, 108 will all be a bicycle lane that will be marked in the future. And that's where we're heading with that road. So this is like a step backwards. So if you do have to pass this tonight because of other considerations, I would say let us review this each year and see how safe this really is for people to be parking in this area.
I have a question.
I'm like for no parking over there.
So
I am too, but I'm trying to listen to what Mr. Manny has to say.
Can I ask a question? So,
yes, as long as Rosemary's done.
I think you were done, right?
I'm done. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I've read this like 4 times and I keep trying to. So this is from the Dunes Club entrance to Sprague Bridge, where the old Boston Neck Road and Boston Neck Road meet.
That's correct, even further north.
So right now usually people don't park there at all because it appears to be a major roadway.
That's correct.
So now, again, what we're saying is you could have parked there, and now we're announcing that even though people may not have thought they could park there, now we're telling them you can park there for 2 hours between May and September. So we're limiting it, but people kind of never knew that you could do it. Is that accurate?
Right now, at least on the southbound side, there are no parking signs all along.
Oh, there is, okay. I mean, I don't feel comfortable with it only because I don't want to encourage anybody parking on either side of that road.
That is accurate, what you're saying. So like anything else in town, when there's any type of parking restrictions placed somewhere, it has a cause and effect somewhere else.
No, I know. So we eliminated Star Drive, both sides, west, I get it, and now people are trying to figure out where to park. I saw, Steve's right, he's not here, but you know, when opening day before the beach, right, people are across the street on the grass near the pond, which I'd never seen that before. It was chaos. He was across the street trying to figure out what to do. I don't think even discussing the ability, even though it's legal, I just get nervous about even discussing the ability to park on either side of on that road. I think it's, as a runner and a bicyclist, I know there's sidewalks, I get it, but those are people, you know, I think the speed limit is 25, but people drive 45 all the time. I think it's a danger.
The reason you don't see people parking there now is because they have alternative place to park. The 2 parking lots are Sprague at the bridge. So once we start restricting those parking lots by a substantial amount of spaces, they're going to be parking on the road, which we cannot prohibit, according to the state.
So we're in a
But the only
quagmire.
thing we can do is regulate it. And the regulation that the committee came up with was the same restrictions on the rest of the road is 2 hours.
Rosemary, can you come up here just one quick second? I just want to ask you, you made a comment that I want to get a clarification on, and I hate to belabor this topic, but this is important.
Yeah, but I'm
to me.
not comfortable with this
So,
either, actually.
You
so.
mentioned that there are people at the state, one bunch is saying one thing, another bunch is saying, can you just repeat that? Because I didn't.
Okay, so I should, the Department of Administration has conducted a study for the last year on the bicycle mobility plan, and from that, and this summer will be released a plan for the state of Rhode Island where there will be bike lanes and bike paths. And one of those that will be going forward is a beautiful bike lane from the North Kingston line, actually all the way down from Quonset Point, all the way down to Point Judith, and then around Galilee, Escape Road, and up 108. It is not safe now in some of those areas, but with state funding, there will be markings, so it will be safer in the future. But I feel like this is not taking that into consideration. That's what the Department of Administration, administration is doing, so it's a study.
Thank you.
Okay.
So let's maybe, if there's 2 state agencies that we're getting conflicting, maybe we have the staff look at that, and then we come back, if we talk to each of those, right hand, left hand, and then if we don't get a resolution, this is our best case scenario of the 2 hours. I think this moves more to what you want, but that way we can at least make a play to try to get what we think is in the best interest of the town.
I'll be glad to double check, but we're pretty certain on what we've been told since we've been working on it for 18 months that
We don't like what's in front of us, though, so I think we should continue it.
If we restrict the parking on the 2 sides of the Sprague Bridge, the people are going to move their vehicles. They're going to try and find parking somewhere, and it's going to be on the road, on Boston Neck Road, which there are no parking restrictions. So by instituting a 2-hour limit, at least we can regulate how long they can be there. Because currently, right now, if we restrict those 2 parking lots, they're going to park on Boston Neck Road and they can stay there all day. So I guess the choice is scrap the plan we've been working on for 18 months of restricting the 2 lots on Sprague Bridge.
I'd like to continue it so we can kind of think about it. I know it's been a project that you've been working on 18 months. One of the reasons we were working on it because we wanted to clean up that area over there. It was getting carried away. People were, parking on the lawns all the way up Boston Neck Road. So I think it's a valuable project. I think we are in a little bit of a snag here. So I'd rather think about it. Let's talk with you a little more offline and then
I'll make a motion to continue it.
and then bring it back to us. All right, I have a motion to continue. Do I have all those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, motion passes, we'll continue. Thank you for that, David and Rosemary. 20, a motion to approve the participation agreement between the town of Narragansett and the state of Rhode Island, the Viewpoint Government Solutions for the statewide e-permitting software system for the building officials' office. Do I have a
So moved.
Second.
discussion? Tony, do you want to say anything? No? I can't hear you. No? Anybody from the public have a question?
Madam President, we've been talking about this as well for quite a while. This is moving towards a couple of the criticisms we have here at Town Hall is the permitting is slower than people want it to be, even though the staff works hard to get this stuff out. This e-permitting will speed up the more the permits that are very easy to get, like just just some basic renovations and stuff like that. So it would speed up the permits that can come in and out of the building inspector's office. And it kind of makes everything on the same level as far as permits and fees and so forth. And we are eligible for a $10,000 reimbursement for the one-time cost to join this system.
Excellent. Nice. Thank you for that update. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, motion passes. 21, a motion to approve the settlement and authorize the town solicitor to sign a settlement agreement to resolve litigation that was filed against the town by Taylor Dunes Qualified Personnel Residential Trust, UDT, June 16, 2004. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Anybody from the public? Anybody on the council? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, motion passes. And we're at the motion to adjourn.
I'll move that motion.
Second. All
Second.
those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em.